If you looked at that last video I just published, it showed you all the different beds that I've now got in the No Dig Veg Garden, all part of our regen system here. And when we talk about no dig, a lot of people have a concern, and one of the biggest worries they have is, where am I going to get the compost from? And it's a valid question. And certainly for me here, I've been looking at ways to get the compost in to us that I can use on the beds. How can I do it? I've spoken in the past about the green waste compost that I use, and also there's a lot of videos on the channel, and I'll link them at the end of the video here so you can have a look at those if you want to, about how I go about making mine. I've got a lot of grass I can use, a lot of green materials, and then I get a lot of brown materials from the dead plants, from vegetable waste in the garden itself. We get other sources from the kitchen scraps. Coffee grinds is another good example. And then in the autumn, I get a great supply of leaves as the trees drop them in the fall. So that all gets added into the compost bays that we've got here. So I've got three sources. The green waste, as I've mentioned. I buy horse manure from my local stable that I know has no chemicals in it, so there's no aminopyridine problems for me there. And what I can produce myself. Now I've done, like I say, quite a few videos about how I make my own, but what I've never shown you is the results. And what I've been doing today is, because we're coming into March now, it's that season, it's that time of the year when the grass is going to start growing because the temperatures are on the rise, and that is going to give me a valuable resource to add into the compost piles. When I add that green into that, it recharges the system and generates a lot more heat than I've currently got at the minute, where I'm sitting at about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But it's a great time of year to reignite the heaps to get them cooking again. But while I've been organising all that, like I say, I thought, you've not seen the results of my efforts. And to be honest with you, there's only one video I've ever seen on YouTube, for example, that does just that. So I thought I would show you. And you can then decide for yourself whether what I do is a good thing or a bad thing, whether it can work for you or not. And as I say, in everything that I do here, it's all scalable. I've scaled up, but you can scale down. So it's all possible. So we'll go over there and we're going to have a look at the compost heaps, and you can decide for yourself. So let's go and have a look. Now, every time you look at my videos, if it's anything to do with compost, I come around to this area, you will be familiar with these two plastic boxes, the Daleks. Now, these guys we use during the winter because we're not getting a lot of waste from the garden itself. This is mainly from kitchen scraps, but also from the wood burner as well, because everything goes in. Ash can go in as well. And just try and remember one thing. This is not an exact science. You don't have to put an exact quantity or percentage of a green or a brown or anything else. Throw it all in there. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to move this piece of wood out of the way for a second. And we'll just pop these two open. And there you can see what we've got in there. So I've got the remains of the footballs, which are those huge kohlrabis that I pulled up the other day, in here. And there's some grass in there as well, where I've been weeding a certain area, which I think was at the front, can't remember. But anyway, it can all go in. Weeds, everything can go into this space. If you can chop it up, it will rot down even faster because you're increasing the surface area. So we've got two of these. This was full about 2 months ago, so it's dropped down quite considerably in 8 weeks. And once that was full, we moved on to this one. So there's our 2 bays, and so we're now filling up this one, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start incorporating it into the other bays that we've got. So let's go and have a look. So here's the very familiar setup. 3 bays, and what I'm going to do is go to the end bay, because I've been using this compost. This is the finished product, and there it is. And I've been using it this morning on a couple of the beds, which we'll go and have a look at in a second. But if you get right in here, it's very crumbly. It's very moist. It's holding its moisture really well. Very light. It's absolutely perfect. Well, when I say absolutely perfect, for me, it's perfect. obviously there's a lot of organic matter in there. It's a year old. It's been sitting in here, as you may have seen in other videos on the channel, and it's worked very well. And it came from here. Now, I mentioned recently that I filled up both of these bays back in October, so they were up to the very tops of these pallets here, and they both have rotted down. And what I've done is I've started taking the top layer off this one here to bring across to this one here. But this is where the grass cutting season is going to come into play. I've got a lot of matter in here that needs to continue to rot down. There's bits of dried hay there that I collected out the front in the summer, and this has really come from the edges of the bays that some cardboard. But this is quite dry, which is from the edges of the heap. If you, like I say, from the one on the right hand side over here. So that's there now, and I need to get it reignited. So what I'm doing is I'm turning it from this bay here across into this one. Now I can start cutting the grass and layer that on the top, and then that's going to generate some heat. And when I do that, I'll then add more of this material onto that grass. So it's going to pick up some heat quite quickly and continue to rot down. But what I want to show you is what this looks like as I'm taking it off, so you get more of an idea, because underneath that it has actually rotted down quite a bit. But if you look at this, you can see that it's not very heavy. There's still a bit of decomposition to go through. If I keep going down a little bit more, obviously we've got some quite large pieces of stalk. There's some brassica stalks there. So it needs to be turned, and by putting it into the other bay, I'll achieve exactly that. This pitchfork is the best thing you can have if you're dealing with compost. But you can see, like I say, it's pretty light, but it needs some more time. And it's also quite moist. So there's all sorts of stuff in here. Okay, so like I say, from there into the one on our left, and then I'll have an area underneath there that I can pop into this one here. I've taken 2 trailer loads out of here this morning, and I put them onto 2 of the beds. So we'll just nip over and you can have a look at that and see the difference in the look of this stuff, the garden compost, as opposed to green waste, which obviously you're very familiar with, and standard rotted down horse manure. There's quite a big difference between the two. So let's go and look at those 2 beds. Stay there. She's not very impressed with me that she can't get in here, but she's getting used to it, and she'll probably follow me along the fence line. There you go, wanting to know what I'm up to, but she can't come in, bless her. Do you know what, I don't think she's that fussed, to be honest. So these are the 2 beds that I've applied the garden compost to, and we'll get a bit of a close-up so you get a bit of an understanding of what it's like. So why do we want to be using compost in a no-dig garden? Well, any form of gardening requires compost, or there seems to be a need for it. And with no dig, all you're doing is you're literally putting it on the top. If you were digging, you'd be digging your compost in. So we're using the compost to feed the soil. That's the key part. There's another issue for that as well, we'll come on to in a second. But here is this stuff here, and it's lovely. It's full of nutrients. It's fantastic for the soil. If I spin you round, and we're looking up that bed there, there's another great reason to be adding compost into your growing spaces, and that is because of all the organic matter that's in it. for every piece of organic matter you add into your soil, you increase its water retention by 10%. That's a lot. And so for us here, it's very important for me to be able to do that. So that's the main reason for adding the compost. It's not just about feeding the soil. You need to be able to maintain the moisture levels. Now, if you're in the UK at the minute, I know the weather's been atrocious and you've got so much rain. It's the end of February today, and I've had 13.6 millimeters of rain for the whole month. So for me, it's very important to keep as much moisture I can into the ground during the summer months, or even like now. I actually got the hose pipes out yesterday to water the garlics and some onions as well. So, you know, it's not looking good. So this kind of stuff is absolutely ideal. It's perfect. It's just what I need. All done with my own fair hands and pitchfork. So it works. There you go. Now, obviously, with the space that I have, will I be able to produce enough compost for all of these beds that we've now got? I don't think I'm going to. So I accept that I'm going to be having to use a system of bringing in additional materials like the green waste and all the horse manure. But I'm very happy with these two results, these two beds here, and the results of the garden compost. It's brilliant. Like I say, grass cuttings, leaves, vegetable peelings, plants like the kale there that are coming out later today, that all goes in, and this is your result. And it's taken 9 months to get to that point there. Something else a lot of people talk about with regards to no-dig and compost is the cost, and I can fully understand the concerns. There's two parts to this. Compost has become extremely expensive, and I think the quality has dropped quite a bit. I'm happy with the green waste because I know that it's not going to cause me any issues with regards to chemical residues, because it's hit such a high temperature. It's pretty inert in that regard. There are nutrients in there, minerals, that kind of thing. And I've got the organic matter, albeit it's dried. And the other issue that you have with green waste is that when you apply it, you do need to give it a really good drink. So basically you're rehydrating it, I'm guessing, for want of a better way of putting it. As you can see, that bed there looks quite dry on the surface, but there's a bit of moisture underneath, but that's from the lower layer of horse manure that I put on. So you do need to keep it moist, and then once it's got its moisture content, you're fine. You don't have to do it so often. So there we are, homemade compost. It's not as difficult as people are led to believe. It's pretty straightforward. Don't be, like I say, don't beat yourself up about what goes in and what doesn't go in, and don't think that you have to turn it every week to keep the heat going. This shows you that that is not the case, and it's a great way for me to be regenerating my vegetable beds each year. There's about 4 to 6 inches gone on there this morning, but then once I've got it all built up, I won't be putting that on year after year. Once you start a no-dig bed, yeah, you do need to have that initial input of compost to get things going. But then after that, you're only looking at a couple of inches maximum each year, just to top dress it and, you know, keep your system going. And the beauty of it is, this has really regenerated my growing space here no end, because if you remember, this was just waste ground. There was no life in it at all. Now I'm seeing the life come back. So it's all a win-win situation. So it is possible. It's not difficult. And like I say, do it based on the scale that you already have, the size of your growing area and how much you need. But bear in mind, you might need to bring some in from an outside source. Now, as you can see here, I'm looking at the grass. That is my next addition to the compost. So I need to get the mower out for the first time this year, start it up, make sure it's working okay, and get cutting. Here she comes. But yeah, it's all kicking in now, isn't it? I hope your gardening spaces are looking okay as well, and you haven't got too many issues. She's enjoying herself. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Look at you.